My name is Kristi Arii, and I am 31 years old, and I am proud to say that I am an honorary candidate of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Visionaries of the Year campaign for 2023. My goal is to raise funds to spread awareness of not only blood cancer, but the resources LLS provides and the profound impact it has on my dad, who is my leukemia warrior and my best friend. And this is all in honor of my dad and my family, to share our story and to hopefully touch other families. Maybe about 10 years ago, I was in college and, living life. You feel invincible when you're in college. And I worked at my local Kohl's department store as an assistant store manager. And the best and most fulfilling part of that job was working the Associates in Actions program, where we would volunteer 2 to 4 times every month. Organizations like CHOC, Boys and Girls Club, and the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. That is where I was first introduced to LLS and the profound impact it has on the community for Light the Night, which is a walk in honor, in support, and in survivorship of blood cancer. And I just touched a little bit, about LLS. And a few months later, I signed up for Be the Match, which is the National Bone Marrow Registry list for those in need of bone marrow transplants. And, I went about my life. I had no idea that this would save my dad and my family's life. And fast forward to December 2021, my family and I took a trip to Walt Disney World. Prior to that, getting ready for it, my dad had just retired, my mom was retired, and they just went in for a routine blood checkup. Didn't think anything of it. His white blood count showed that it was low. But there was nothing to compare it to. And, my dad was a very healthy, very fit, and we were just ready for Walt Disney World. So we went on our vacation. I got engaged there with my parents and my family. And a few weeks when we got back, my dad went in for another blood check, and the results were his white blood count was still low. So the recommendation was to do a bone marrow biopsy, and the results came back. And on the night of January 17th, 2022, my dad received that heartbreaking phone call. The phone call nobody wants to hear, and the words nobody wants to hear: you have cancer. So my dad's diagnosis was AML, which is acute myeloid leukemia, which is the most fatal type of leukemia, and we had no idea what it meant to have AML. All the doctor said was, you just need to come into the hospital and start treatment. We were like, how about tomorrow? Let's have some time to process. Let's have our night as a family. The doctor said, you need to come. You need to start treatment. I live with my fiance's family, and I'll never forget the phone call that my mom called me. Any phone call that I receive, your heart stops. I always keep my phone on me, just in case. But I'll never forget that phone call. My mom called and said, Dad has leukemia, needs to go to the hospital. I was like, no, this can't be. I was just talking to you guys. In that moment, she broke down, and I've never heard my mom break down before. And I think that's one thing to highlight is, in the Asian American community, specifically my family, it's a stigma that we're strong, we can't show weakness, we can't ask for help, we gotta hold it together. But in that moment, I knew. And my fiance and I drove to the hospital, met my family there with my dad's suitcases packed up, and unfortunately, due to COVID guidelines, we could not step foot in the hospital with him. We had to watch him walk into the hospital alone. And my family and I have never been alone before. I know I'm a grown adult, but I've always talked to my parents every day. I went over every week. We're a very close family, and that was the first time where I felt my family was broken. We were alone. Why could this happen to my dad, who is the best, most loving, most thoughtful dad? I mean, he raised 3 girls. Wouldn't you think that a dad with 3 girls would go crazy? He loved being a girl dad. He was everything to my mom, and they were never separated. And to watch him go to the hospital by himself, we waited out there, make sure he was okay. We just didn't know. We had no information. We had no resources, we were not educated, we did not know what it meant to have cancer and to start chemotherapy. Every day since then, my dad was doing an aggressive form of chemo. One thing to highlight is acute myeloid leukemia was being treated years ago as if it were 30 plus years ago. There was hardly any advancements with AML, and we have LLS to thank for their Beat AML clinical trial, because that had saved my dad. The aggressive form of treatment, understanding what it meant to have AML because it wasn't so touched in the past, and to know that there's treatments, there's resources. We were starting to be educated more on his cancer diagnosis through the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. The biggest part of LLS was the copay financial program that my family was so thankfully enrolled in. It provided a copay portion of his medications, which there's a ton of prescriptions, different dosage change, different types of medications. If he has an infection, which can easily happen when you have chemo and your immunity so low, every medication possible, the treatments, chemo, his later life-saving bone marrow transplant process, they helped pay a portion of that. To not have to worry about the financial burden was very relieving. You don't think about these things until you're in that situation. LLS provided, through their information specialists, information about the disease. They're trained oncology nurses. They educated us what AML was, what it meant to have AML, the statistics, the diagnosis, the benefits of these treatments, just a guideline, just educating us. We had no idea. We thought we were so alone. They also provided nutritionists, which you don't think that you need, but when you're on chemo and your immunity's low, you cannot eat certain things. For example, lettuce or strawberries grown in the ground, which my dad loved. My dad loved salads. He loved strawberries. He couldn't eat the things he loved. Deli meat. You wouldn't know these things. Just all these resources was just a lift off our shoulders, because it really helped us prepare, and not only that, but not have to worry. Because if you don't have these resources, you're stuck worrying that you're doing this all on your own, not knowing if it's best for the patient or for the caregiver. That is my mission, and that is why LLS is to provide resources, to provide that patient support. That's everything for a family. That patient support community is a community where you can reach out to other families going through this. LLS connected with families and, most importantly, caregiver. I think that caregiver role is not talked about. It's crucial for the patient to have a caregiver that can help keep track of, okay, you need to take these types of medications at this time. Then 2 hours later, you need to take this medication. LLS provided a notebook for my mom, an organizational book that helped follow a plan that you need to keep organized. When you watch your parents, you don't think anything will happen. 1 minute, you're having a family dinner. Next minute, your life changes. And watching my mom be so strong for my dad, but not just that, watching her life be so focused about making sure everything stays organized. There's a lot of doctor appointments to go to. You're the caregiver, you're driving all over, and it's not the same hospital or building. You're going to different cities. In LA, my parents went to City of Hope, and for his bone marrow transplant, she lived, thankfully was able to that time live with my dad. So she lived in the hospital full time with him, in a recliner chair all day, all night, and stayed with him. So to watch her love my dad so much, to be a caregiver full time, it's amazing. She's a superhero, and that caregiver role needs to be highlighted. But most importantly, LLS helped provide the resources to help my mom feel like she was not alone. And I think that's huge, because when you're a caregiver, you feel like you're taking everything on. You feel like you have to be that one person, and LLS helped her get connected with other caregivers and to feel that support as well. Watching my dad, leaving him at the hospital, not knowing what was gonna happen, him being alone was the most heartbreaking part. because our family were so bonded, and we did everything from stay out in the parking lot every day, every night. The days he couldn't get out of his bed, we flew a 6-foot helium message where we wrote messages, and it was a balloon. We floated up to his 6-story room where he was able to see our message balloon. We had picnics in the parking lot. We had drop-offs for the nurses, like Valentine's rolled around. All these holidays rolled around, and we were there every day. But the hardest part was keeping it in. You know, you just feel like your world's crashing and you feel alone and you're longing for community. It's the hardest but the best part at the same time. The hardest part was watching him go through this, not knowing if he's going to come back home to us. It's still hard. He's still fighting for a cancer-free life, so it's scary every day, but we're also very blessed. In the Asian American community, we don't show emotion. We don't talk. If you're going through a hard thing, it's okay. You're strong. You're gonna get through this. But this cancer journey has opened our eyes, specifically my parents' eyes, that it's okay to have help, to receive help, to look and seek for help. That's one of the big things is don't look, but you need to look and you need to seek that because there's resources out there, and that resource will help you fight and help your family fight. My parents both are, you go to school, you get good grades, you finish college, you get a nice, great job, corporate job, great, management, great benefits, you know. So to leave my corporate job, up and leave it, joining LLS full-time as a full-time nonprofit job, I was a little bit scared and hesitant to share with my family this news. My dad embraced it, and he is so proud that my life's work now is to help families like my dad and my family and help the patient support community, because that's what I'm so strongly compassionate about. And that is what my family needed and received. And knowing firsthand, it makes your fight all that much easier to fight every day, to have that community and to have the resources. And so my dad, I can proudly say, is so happy we had a celebratory dinner for quitting corporate, also celebrating this new chapter, this mission, this drive, and this passion that I have to end blood cancer. That's our goal, right? Is to end cancer. We want to provide the research, the treatments, the education, and the patient support. You're not alone. And when you think that you're in a position to feel alone, you're not alone. There's other families out there battling cancer, whether you're battling it in silence or whether you're battling it loudly, you're not alone. Being a Visionaries of the Year candidate for LLS has just really opened my own community, my team's community, my family's community, to the idea that there are profound resources to help you fight cancer. When you think the word cancer, you're like, well, you have cancer. What do you do? There are so many avenues and people out there that are there to help you. So being a Visionaries of the Year candidate for LLS to spread awareness and to raise funds for pioneering research that saved people like my dad, that helped my family firsthand. I firsthand saw the help that LLS has provided my family with the financial gift, the caregiver emotional support, and the education. I want to be able to touch even just one family through this, and to really spread that awareness that it is very important for a community to come together and to really rally up against everyone, to go against the fight of cancer. I think that's the most important thing to do, is to be together. There's resources out there. LLS provides a profound of them, and to fight. And that is why, my why for being a Visionaries of the Year candidate and for being an employee of LLS is to raise that awareness and raise those funds for these warriors. You can click on the website to donate, to raise funds for blood cancer awareness, to raise funds for blood cancer warriors, to raise funds for blood cancer patient caregivers. These funds will be used to profoundly help impact a family's life, whether that is through information specialists to guide them through their diagnosis, to provide feedback and to provide knowledge on how to direct your life into this cancer journey. There's also to provide that co-pay financial program that my family firsthand has profoundly helped. So please feel free to click on the website to donate. It is a 100% tax-deductible donation, and you can also share the link with your friends, family, network. You can also have any company sponsorships, anything you can imagine, in-kind donations, anything that would help. Any dollar amount will help these cancer warriors fight.